Hi, Michael William Denny here. Thunderwizard.com is the website coming soon. So today what I want to talk about is I want to talk about the similarity between the Norse creation myth and the Taoist creation myth. The Norse people were a Teutonic people, an Indo-European people, a Germanic people. And so ethnically and linguistically and culturally, there are a lot of similarities between the Teutonic peoples and other Indo-Europeans, such as the Greeks, the Romans, and the East Indians. So one would logically think that the Norse creation myth would have a lot of similarities with the Romans, the Greeks, and the East Indians. However, I have found that the Norse creation myth has much more in common with Taoist creation myth than it does with anybody else. And I found this to be incredibly interesting and exciting, being the fact that I spent a lot of time working in Taoism myself. So I want to explain to you in generally speaking, I want to compare the two myths so that you can see the connection. And the reason I'm doing this is not to say that the Norse influenced Taoism or that Taoism influenced Teutonic thinking. What I am proposing here is that each one of these cultures independently was coming to discover the same energetic principles underlying the universe. And this is a thought I want to get out to heathens. I have found, talking to some heathens, that there's still a very strong reactionary mindset, which is a direct reaction to Christian thinking. It's also a Western scientific mindset. I find that Western scientists, when it comes to culture and language, immediately jump to the fact that some culture must have influenced another culture. And there's a whole other option here, which is that, people are perfectly capable of coming to their own conclusions by themselves. So what I'm saying here is that the clear connection between the Taoist creation myth and the Norse creation myth does not necessarily mean that one influenced the other. I'm saying that they very well could have evolved independently of each other, but that they were discovering universal energy laws within the universe. So let's get to it. So I'm assuming if you're a heathen you already know the Norse creation myth. So I'm going to start with the Taoist creation myth. Taoist creation myth goes like this. In the beginning you had Wu Qi. Wu Qi means empty force. Literally means the empty energy that has nothing but pure potential. It's nothing has been realized or manifested. It's pure unmanifest potential. From this Wu Qi, which is the most powerful energy, if you're using energy in Taoist energy work, from Wu Qi comes Tai Chi. You may have heard of this term Tai Chi before. It means grand ultimate. And if you've seen that picture of the yin and yang symbol, that yin and yang symbol is called Tai Chi. So from Tai Chi, you have these two principles of the first aspect of manifestation, which is the duality of yin and yang, of light and dark, of hot and cold, of wet and dry, of ethereal and earthly. You have these two, heaven and earth. So this is the yin and yang. So from Tai Chi comes yin and yang. See where I'm going with this? From yin and yang, you get the three pure ones. Now the three pure ones is the triad of forces within the universe. And in religious Taoism, these three pure ones are seen as three deities, three kings. And from the three pure ones then, we have the five elements. The five elements in Chinese thought are wood, metal, fire, water, earth. In East Indian and in Hellenic thought and other Indo-European thought, you have the same five elements. You have ether, which would be wood, and air, which would be metal, and then you have fire, water, and earth. So you have Wu Qi, then you have Tai Chi, then you have the 3 ones, then you have the 5 elements. From the 5 elements, you have the 10,000 things. 10,000 refers to infinity. So the 10,000 things means the infinite myriad of established creation, the manifested universe. So, now for those of you who aren't familiar with the Norse myth, let's look through that, because the similarities are striking. In the beginning of the Norse myth, you have Ginnungagap, which literally means the yawning chasm, the yawning gap, and it is the same idea. This is pure, unmanifested, pure power, pure potential, Ginnungagap. From Ginnungagap, you get the 2 polarities of fire and ice, the worlds of fire and ice. So here you have a clear similarity between the polarity of yin and yang. But instead of yin and yang, which again, in my experience, Chinese are very pragmatic when it comes to their spiritual teachings, which is great if you're a Westerner, because then you don't have to, worry so much about translation, because it translates over very easily into another language. The European mindset, however, is much more poetic. So really, to get the best out of European mythology, it's helpful to actually be ethnically European, because your mindset is already very poetic. Anyway, I digress. So you have Ginnungagap, Wu Qi, you have Tai Chi, and fire and ice. Then the Norse myth gets much more detailed than the Taoist mythology. And eventually you get to this being, or this triad of beings called Odin, Vili, and Ve. Now, I am making a link in similarity from Odin, Vili, and Ve to the 3 pure ones in Taoist cosmology. And let me explain that more in detail. The 3 ones are, that triad in Taoist cosmology is also found everywhere in Taoist thinking. So you have, when talking about philosophical concepts, you have the triad of heaven, earth, and human beings. When you're talking about energetic work, you have a triad of heaven, earth, and spirit. In Taoist energy work, internal alchemy, you have three major energy centers which are corresponding to this triad, and it's heaven, and then earth is the navel, and then spirit, or humanity, is the heart. Now, in the Norse myths, you have Odin, Vili, and Ve. Odin, Vili, and Ve go to war against Ymir, which is actually the body of the created universe, and they dismantle his body after killing him. And when they dismantle his body, Odin, Vili, and Ve go into all different directions and create, the existing multiverse. They used his skull for the sky. They use his blood for the sea, creating, so you get where I'm going with this. Now, and this is similar to the Taoist, where after the 3 ones then become the 5 elements, which makes up the physical universe. So there is a connection also linguistically, not language-wise, but in terms of the meaning of the words between Odin, Vili, and Ve, and the idea of heaven, earth, and man. Now, let's look at first heaven, earth, and man. Heaven, earth, and man. Heaven up there, earth down there, man in the middle. So you have the 3 worlds, that you find in many different places. But if you are thinking the way modern Western people think, we tend to think very linearly. Primitive, pre-Christian Europeans did not think literally. This is a result of post-Christian thought. If we were to think linearly, we would go heaven, man, and earth, right? Well, that's not what the Chinese say. They say heaven, earth, and man. Now, how does this correspond with Odin, Vili, and Ve? Well, let's look at the meaning of the words Odin, Vili, and Ve. Odin corresponds with, it can be translated as divine inspiration. So this would correspond with the upper center in Chinese energy work. This would be heaven. Then you have Vili. Vili translates as willpower. Now in English we have a phrase, when somebody has a lot of willpower, a lot of bravery, we say he's got a lot of guts. Guts referring to the navel center. People say I have a gut feeling. So we still have this in our thought process as well. In both Taoist energy and in East Indian energy work, East Indians are Indo-European cousins, so it's very likely that there may be an ancient link in thought process. In both of those energy working systems, the navel center is the source of willpower, the source of the storage point for energy, for atham, for chi, for prana. And so I find it interesting that the Norse sequence is Odin and then Vili and then Ve. What is Ve? Ve is translated as sacred space. Ve is also a word used for temple or for altar, and it has this idea of sacred space, of spirit. So you have this same idea, although being understood from a completely different cultural perspective. You have heaven, earth, and spirit in Chinese. In the Norse Teutonic idea, you have Odin, Vili, and Ve. And then from Odin, Vili, and Ve, they create the entire universe. So anyway, I found this very exciting, and I think it is in our interest, if we truly want to be Reconstructionist heathens, I believe it is in our interest to get over our xenophobia of other cultures and other religions, and instead of being so frightened that we're going to end up being taken over by other cultures or other spiritualities, instead of that, let's be confident in ourselves. Let's first and foremost be confident in the gods. The gods are perfectly capable of teaching us. We don't need to be worried about that. And let's be confident in science. I mean that literally. When it comes to gravity, gravity is a universal scientific energetic principle. Gravity works the same in North America as it does in Europe, as it does in Egypt, as it does in Africa. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, gravity works the same everywhere. There isn't a different idea for gravity in European thought than there is someplace else. So if we want to be true Reconstructionists, let's first admit to some realities. We have a very limited source material for understanding how to interpret Teutonic myths. It's a fact. It is in our best interest to do what the original writers of the myths, or if they were inspired by the gods, the original people who were inspired by the gods, to go and rediscover universal energy principles. It is only in our best interest to look at not only our East Indian, Indo-European cousins, but surprisingly to me, the Chinese and maybe even the shamans have a lot of things in common with us. And by looking at all of these different things, let's look at the universal, energetic, spiritual principles. And then we will have a better ability of reconstructing not only our religion, but also our mystical and magical way of thinking. Okay, that's all for today.